Yeah, what's happening? Robert Phoenix here, broadcasting to you live from sunny, cold, windy Austin, Texas. And it is 12/12. It is 12/12/17. And we're here to do a little bit of radio with you. What's going on out there, everybody? It's a very interesting day in the United States of America as Roy Moore decides that, Alabama, going to decide if Roy Moore is going to become a member of the United States Senate, thus replacing Jeffrey. I want to take all your marijuana sessions. It should be a really interesting election. I'm not sure he's going to win. I have a feeling. Let's do a quick little astrological checkup here. By the way, did you know that Roy Moore is an Aquarius? It makes total sense, doesn't it? I mean, the guy is an upsetter. You see, this is the beauty about astrology, is that it's not like it's dependent. Astrology is not dependent upon your political point of view or your political persuasion. When we have Uranus and Aries, people are waking up. They're waking up. And there's no patent on the waking up. One side can claim that they're woke. The other side can claim that they're finally emerging from their politically correct slumber. And so the energy is available to everybody, and it is distributed and experienced based on their predisposition to a large extent. But the energy is the energy. So when you see an Aquarian, people think, oh yeah, that Aquarian, they're going to be liberal. Yeah, to some extent that could happen. I mean, look at Saul Alinsky. He's an Aquarian. He's the ultimate radical in some ways in terms of the political process. Total Aquarian. We look at the color revolutions that took place in Egypt. Egypt and where else? Yemen, and all across the Middle East, North Africa. Those color revolutions, they took place during the month of February. Most of them. So what do we have there? We have the Aquarian revolutionary energy. Aquarius is revolutionary. But it is not tied. Reagan was an Aquarian. Reagan was a revolutionary in his own way. I mean, here he comes. He's going to theoretically allow people to govern themselves. I mean, that was the Reagan platform. When Reagan came into office, his goal was to cut taxes and cut government intervention and allow people to run their lives, because the Reagan party or the Reagan team had run a series of polls through Stanford Research Institute. They ran these polls, and they wanted to find out where people's heads were at. People at that time said, hey, we want to be left alone. And we're talking boomers at that time that were probably around their 40s, late 30s and 40s. And they wanted to be left alone. They wanted to live their lives. They wanted to enjoy the spoils of their material gains. They wanted to go out and kayak and buy LL Bean stuff or whatever it was. I mean, that's what they got back from the people that they sampled. It was an old school punch card kind of deal. And what happened was that Reagan began to tailor his campaign based on those responses. And that was the message that he was sending out. And Reagan could not have been elected without the boomers. People don't understand that. They don't understand. They think that Reagan was elected by a bunch of old fogies. That's not necessarily true. Anyway, he was a radical. He was an Aquarian. So Roy Moore is his own version of that. You get what I'm saying? Doug Jones, his opponent, is a Taurus, by the way. So let's see. We've got Moon in Libra. One would think that the Moon in Libra would favor Mr. Roy Moore from the... He's I believe, he's around 20. Let's look him up here. Let's get Roy Moore. Let's see what we got. Yeah, February 11th, 1947. So he's a 211 guy. and 47, that's 21.3, so he's in a three-phase, three-cycle. He's got that 11 core. And, look, one man's biblical inspiration is another man's Pleiadian homebrew, right? I mean, this is what we talk about with astrology. Does one system or does one person's perspective trump another person's perspective? I mean, aren't we all sort of clamoring for some version of truth? And a lot of it really is completely colored and predisposed. And, nobody's a completely clear vessel. I mean, maybe there are out there. Maybe these are the people that are going to be taken off for the rapture when the rapture comes. But we all have our sediment, right? We all have things that we haven't worked through. We all have things that we have to continue to press on and clear up in our lives. And this is a fact, Jack. Yours truly, right here. I'm a living proof and testament of it. Anyway, so we got Roy Moore and Doug Jones. That'll be interesting. And Roy Moore, the Aquarian Upsetter, coming at you. So there were a couple things that happened in the last 24 hours. Very interesting stuff. So apparently my last podcast struck a chord with a couple of people. Somebody left a comment that we don't want any Muslims in this country, and decided that they wanted to lovingly call me a faggot and asshole. Hey, look, you want that's up to you, man. I mean, you want to come in and bring the heat, that's it. You can do it. I can always hit delete if I don't like your comment. Or I can let it sit there and you can have other people respond to it. Hey, it is mostly a free world with mostly free speech. But when Google goes out and hires 10,000 people, Google's hiring 10,000 people to basically patrol the internet and go after offensive content. Well, when did Google become the thought police? Right? So if Google can do it, I can too. I can be my own version. No, not really. I mean, I try to keep things open. I don't want to be dictatorial. I don't want to be that, that just because you don't agree with me, I'm going to shut you down. I'm going to take you out. I'm going to round you up, put you in a gulag somewhere. And then another person, and this is really, I tell you, sometimes people want certain things. And if you don't respond to them right away, or you're not sure where they're coming from, and all of a sudden they're not happy with whatever it is that you haven't promised or can promise, or now all of a sudden you're in a bucket. And that happened to me yesterday, which is an unfortunate bucket to be in because somebody actually had kind of a cause and wanted me to look into it. But I'll tell you what, I don't do well with ciphers. Okay, if there's something that you want me to look at, and this happens all the time, people send me emails, they send me texts on Facebook, they'll send me stories, they'll ask me certain things. I don't think you're going to find somebody who is as interactive as I am. In a lot of ways, I try to answer every email. And before you go off and shout me down, why don't you try reaching out to me? Maybe that would be a better thing to do. Because I think we've all got these quick trigger fingers. And it's so easy for us to just pull it out and go, bam, fuck that guy or fuck that woman, whatever, right? And I think we've got, I even have that response. I just got to back off of it a little bit sometimes. What harm would it do to wait a little bit or send an email or, you know what I mean? I mean, look, at the end of the day, I've been through a lot. I've been doing this for 10 years now, pretty much. I started in 2010, so I've been doing it for 7, it'll be 8 years. I'm going through that Saturn cycle. This is a big Saturn cycle. Saturn's squaring my sun right now. So I'm going through some pretty interesting stuff. But I've been through a lot. I've been through some heavy stuff. I've had people attack me. Even in my own personal life, I've been targeted. I've had my marriage pretty much... Well, I can't talk about that. I can't talk about that. There's a gag order that's been imposed. So look, let's just say I've been through the fire. Could the fire get more intense? Oh, it can always get more intense. It's part of life, right? Anyway, look, I'm saying this. If there is a hot button issue and you want me to look at something or you want to communicate with me, leaving a comment on my YouTube channel is not the best way to do it. Okay? It's just not. So if you want to connect with me, you can send me an email. You can find me on Facebook. Not that hard to find. So there we go. Interesting 24 hours. Let's put it that way. I wanted to bring up something from yesterday that I wanted to talk about but didn't get a chance to. And we're going to get around to the meat of today's show after I do this. This kind of stunned me when I read this. And in some ways, it makes a lot of sense. Now, everybody knows that Trump doesn't drink. He doesn't drink, doesn't do drugs, doesn't smoke. He loves fast food. The guy loves fast food and he likes steak. He's probably got one of the most unhealthy diets on the planet. And to top it all off, he drinks 12 Diet Cokes a day. 12 Diet Cokes a day. So what is the cumulative effect of drinking 12 Diet Cokes a day? And people are saying, well, he's got early onset Alzheimer's and all this other stuff, right? That's connected to it. MS, whatever. Dementia, 12 Diet Cokes a day. So I'm just going to read this. This is Dr. Betty Martini. And here's what she has to say. Today there are 6 class actions, and they were filed against Coke, Pepsi, and Dr. Pepper for deceptive advertising. The protest in the National Soft Drink Association. By the way, if you're drinking soft drinks, you should really re-examine that. Really examine that. I give myself the pleasure of drinking a Mexican Coke about once every 3 or 4 months, which has sugar in it, doesn't have corn syrup. I mean, it's just all crap, right? It's got all that ascorbic acid and everything. But, I'm just saying, once every 3 or 4 months, I have me a nice Mexican cola. But here we go. In the protest of the National Soft Drink Association, now American Beverage, Dr. Richard Wortman is quoted in an affidavit as saying that aspartame makes you crave carbohydrates, so you gain weight. Wow, how about that? You drink a Diet Coke and you want to eat carbs. How? The president agrees with him. It makes you hungry. In an article I just wrote on the class actions of the actual protest of the NSD, of the protest of the CDC. So the soft drink industry knew ahead of time that it would cause an epidemic of obesity. How about that? And that's not just in the Cokes, right? All the flavor additives that they put into food, and basically they're to get you to eat more. The AMA declared obesity to be a disease, and the CDC said 1 out of 3 in the U.S. is overweight. Excuse me. Now, she wrote an article on aspartame. And there's a link here. The medical text, Aspartame Disease, an Ignored Epidemic by H.J. Roberts, M.D. This is a book on Amazon. 1,000 pages of symptoms and diseases. Even the FDA's own list of reactions from aspartame lists 92 from 4 types of seizures to coma and death. In While Science Sleeps, A Sweetener Kills by Dr. Woodrow Monty, he calls aspartame a killing machine. It is truly Rumsfeld's plague. Yeah, Don Rumsfeld created aspartame. Neurosurgeon Russell Blaylock, MD, wrote Excitotoxins, The Taste That Kills. You will notice titles in medical texts by renowned experts who use words like kills or epidemic. Even victims write books to alert the public like Aspartame, The King of Toxins by Ray Parker Birch. Have I written President Trump? Yes. The second time I wrote, I sent the package to someone at the White House hoping this person would deliver it to him personally. And I wrote an article specifically for him titled Aspartame and Leaders of the United States. Since President Trump himself knows aspartame can make you fat, why do you think he still uses it? Because it is very, very addictive. the methyl ester immediately becomes free methyl alcohol, which is classified as a narcotic. It causes chronic methanol poisoning, which affects the dopamine system of the brain and causes addiction. Aspartame also causes blackouts, as a pilot testified before the Senate in 1985, coming to just before he hit the water. You will see a pilot alert by Russell Blaylock on my website. That's mpwhi.com, mpwhi.com. Remember President Bush's blackout? He said it was because of a pretzel. No, it's because of the clone. Pull the plug. Dr. H.J. Roberts wrote an article about it. Actually, I'd written to the younger President Bush when he was governor of Texas. All presidents from Reagan on down have used aspartame. Don Rumsfeld is responsible for getting the chemical poison on the market. The FDA Board of Inquiry said aspartame could not be proven safe, caused brain tumors, and revoked the petition for approval. G.D. Searle hired Rumsfeld to get it approved and filed suit over the result of the Board of Inquiry. Rumsfeld was on his transition team. The next thing you know, Dr. Jerry Goyen, FDA commissioner, was fired in the middle of the night. President Reagan wrote an executive order, so Goyen could not sign the revoked petition into law. Some years later, the Atlanta Constitutional Journal-Constitution, interviewed President Reagan about aspartame. Reagan said he didn't use it anymore, that he found out some things later on. Little too late. Aspartame is a major cause of Alzheimer's, which is what took the life of President Reagan. When I saw Obama drinking Diet Coke and his wife Michelle was interested in what children eat, I had a copy of the 1,000-page medical text, Aspartame Disease and Ignored Epidemic, and a letter from Dr. H.J. Roberts, hand-carried to the White House and put in Michelle's hands. Dr. Roberts said he never got a thank you or acknowledgement, and the Obamas never made information public. In the movie Sweet Misery, A Poisoned World, you will hear James Turner, attorney, tell the story of how Don Rumsfeld got this chemical poison on the market. It's about an hour and a half long, and you will see several of the medical experts on aspartame. You can get a copy of it from Corey Brackett, who produced www.sweetremedyradio.com. Corey used aspartame and was in a wheelchair, hardly able to walk or talk, diagnosed with MS. She had one of the largest lesions seen in an MS victim. After reading about aspartame, she abstained and walked out of her wheelchair. 8 months later, her huge lesion all but disappeared. She called me and said, "A movie needs to be made about this." I said, "Tell me about it." I know she was smiling when she said, "I own the film company. Be sure to get copies of gifts for all your friends who are using this poison, once listed with the Pentagon, in an inventory perspective biochemical warfare weapons submitted to Congress." This is from 2005. You'll notice Don Rumsfeld made the front page. Studies were done at Fort Detrick under a number rather than a name. The researcher went home after the studies were done and told his wife, "Get everything out of the house that has aspartame in it. It's literally chemical poison." As Dr. Blaylock said in the lecture, understand the reactions are not allergic but toxic, like arsenic and cyanide. She goes on to say, if anyone knows how to get President Trump's attention on this matter, it would save his life. Well, maybe it'd save the world, too. You know, perhaps with this over addiction and overuse of diet. I mean, Diet Coke tastes like shit, doesn't it? I mean, all these diet drinks taste horrible. I mean, if you want to, there's other ways if you want to lose weight. But the problem is that it's addictive. I think ALS too has been connected to aspartame, right? I think that there's some links to ALS as well. This stuff has got to go. It's just kind of, it's certifiable poison. We have the President of the United States chugging 12 of these a day. 12 is the magic number, right? Since we are at 12/12. Let's look at December 12th and let's see some of the interesting events connected to this day in history. Why don't we go back in time a little bit? Let's do a little historical perspective on this day. So it is the 346th day of the year. So we are winding down. Winding down. Let's see, here we go. The Order of the Dragon in 1408. It is a monarchical chivalric order that was created by Sigismund of Luxembourg, the King of Hungary. It was started on this day in 1408, the Order of the Dragon. In 1787, Pennsylvania becomes the second state to ratify the United States Constitution. 5 days after, Delaware became the first. Oh, here's a good one. We have to go back in time a little bit. We're doing a little Mercury retrograding here. In 884, King Carolman II dies after a hunting accident. Maybe he was hunting with Dick Cheney. He is succeeded by his cousin Emperor Charles the Fat, who for the last time reunites the Frankish Empire. How'd you like to have that name as a ruler? Not Peter the Great, Alexander the Great, Ivan the Terrible, Charles the Fat. Striking fear into the hearts of men across the land. Let's see, what else do we have on 12/12? It's not a huge historical day. See, Joseph H. Rainey of South Carolina becomes the second black U.S. congressman. That's back in 1870. Belo Horizonte becomes the first planned city in Brazil back in 1897. Here we go. In 1901, Marconi receives the first transatlantic radio signal. The letter S in Morse code. How about that? In 1911, King George V of the United Kingdom and Mary Teck are enthroned as Emperor and Empress of India. How about that? How'd you like that? You're living in India, you're from India, you've been there, your culture's been there for thousands of years, and all of a sudden here come these two people. Hey, we're the Emperor, we're the Empress. Kiss our feet. 1917... let's see. 1917 in Nebraska, Father Edward J. Flanagan founds Boys Town as a farm village for wayward boys in the future hunting grounds for pedophiles everywhere. The flag of Estonia is raised to the top of Peak Hermann for the first time. That's back in 1918. In 1925, the Majis of Iran votes to crown Reza Khan as the new Shah of Iran, starting the Pahlavi dynasty. How about that? Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, wow. This is an unfortunate day. 1941, Adolf Hitler declares the imminent extermination of the Jews at a meeting in the Reich Chancellery. 1941. What else do we have here? Let's see. Kenya gained its independence on 12/12, 1963. There was a coup d'etat in 1979, and it was between the South Korean army and its General Chun Du-hwan. He orders the arrest of Chief of Staff General Young Sung-hwa without authorization from President Choi Kyu-ha, alleging involvement in the assassination of ex-President Park Chung-hee. So a lot of political intrigue on this day. Let's see, what else do we have here? 1979, the unrecognized state of Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, returns to British control and resumes using the name Southern Rhodesia. Okay, what else? A lot of minor international events. In 1991, the Russian Federation gains independence from the USSR. We talked about that on the webinar this last weekend. Last time Saturn was in Capricorn, and the massive changes, the absolute massive changes that took place during that time. The world was reordered from 1988 to 1990, 91, and that's the last time Saturn was in Capricorn. You can bet your butt it's going to happen again. In 1991, the Russian Federation, we did that. 2000, the United States Supreme Court releases its decision in Bush versus Gore. So in this day, 12/12 and 2000, that sham of an election got ratified and approved by the Supreme Court where it should never have gone. Now, would the United States have been better off with Al Gore? We wouldn't have had 9/11. I can guarantee you that. But Gore's payoff was, of course, he became the Pope of Hope. He became the Green Pope, leading the ecological revolution. Global warming, he'd win Oscars, he'd win peace prizes. Sometimes I guess it pays to finish second. Just ask John Kerry. In 2001, let's see, that's a Vietnamese piece. And in 2012, North Korea, so this is 5 years ago, North Korea successfully launches its first satellite. The Kwangmyong 3, Unit 2, using an Unha rocket carrier. So not necessarily a huge day. Oh, here's one. This is a good one. In 1950, Paula Ackerman, the first woman appointed to perform rabbinical functions in the United States, leads the congregation in her first services. That was back in 1950. Here we go. A little trip through time, a little Mercury retrograde. I think probably the most interesting thing was the Marconi. That's fascinating on 12/12. It's a major breakthrough in modern communication. And then I guess Russia gaining its independence from the USSR. That's another big one. All right, so we've covered a little bit of Roy Moore. We've covered a little bit of Trump and his Diet Coke addiction. But let's get to the meat of today's proceedings, shall we? So I was thinking, I had a late night conversation last night with somebody over on Facebook. And it was a really interesting conversation because it started off as being antagonistic. I mean, let's just say that the texts that were being that one of my posts was being hit with was a little alarming. I was like, wow, where's this coming from? This is a Facebook friend. I haven't really had much interaction, but I've known this Facebook friend for a while, and I'm thinking, again, it was like part of this day where it's like, oh wow, this is some interesting material. I gotta check this out. And so I started to text him. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Where are you going with all this? And that led to me actually calling him at like 1 a.m. because I wasn't sleepy. I didn't have anything else to do. Let's find out where this, let's travel down the rabbit hole. Maybe I can learn something, right? I mean, that's part of it too. Maybe you can learn something when these things happen and like, okay, I can accept that. Well, it's something for me to look at. Sure. Okay. Or reject it outright. I said, no, Glenn, you're kind of way off. And maybe there's something in between too, because sometimes there's, some truth and there's also some projection that goes on. And that's up for us to decide. Anyway, long story short, I began to hear a story and it was kind of heartbreaking in a lot of ways. And turns out that, he's a practicing cowboy. He works with horses and works for people with horses. And you could tell that he didn't have a whole lot in life right now. And I could hear it in his voice. And it was absolutely kind of heartbreaking. And he said he doesn't even own his own saddle anymore. He doesn't own his own boots and spurs anymore, which are an important part of being a cowboy. I don't know what he's using, but I thought to myself, this is just absolutely heartbreaking. I'm like, how can I get this guy a saddle? Right? How can I get this guy a saddle so he can at least have some dignity and be able to have his own saddle and use it for when he works with a horse? I mean, what's a cowboy without a saddle, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know anything about saddles. I don't know how much they cost. And even if I did, I don't have the resources to throw out for a saddle. And I thought to myself, well, he's not the only person out there. He is not the only person out there. There are other people who are in extreme positions of need that they don't often state, and they're going through life, and every day is just kind of a matter of physical and emotional survival. Some of them are on the streets. Some of them are kind of on the border. They're maybe living in it's not to say that some trailer parks aren't really nice. Some are, but there might be people living in trailer parks that are kind of on the edge, or maybe they're living out of a hotel, or maybe they're living out of their cars. And I think we all know at least one or two of these people. So I thought to myself, well, how can we bring some magic to these people's lives? How can we make a difference? And obviously, the answer is, well, you can do it in the moment. Right? We're open to the moment. We stay in the moment, and we're able to somehow affect a positive change. We choose light over dark. We choose connectivity over disconnection. I mean, those are the moments that I think really count, especially when we're at times in our lives where we're being challenged and things aren't as easy as they could be or that we're used to. Does that make sense? But on the other hand, I was thinking, well, what would happen if we set up like a really quick GoFundMe account? Now, I'm not sure how this would work, okay? I'm not sure how this would work because there'd have to be an administrator of the account and there'd have to be a way for people to qualify and kind of get through things, right? Or figure out, who's been naughty, who's been nice, or who's worthy, right? But wouldn't it be cool if we set up a GoFundMe miracle account that was for like, I don't know, 5K, 10K, and out of that account, we're just targeting people that need something with that account, okay? Wouldn't that be a cool thing to do? Like, out of that account, I'd love to buy that guy's saddle. Say, here you go, man. It's been tough, but saddle up. Here's your saddle. And there are other people out there who could really use something, whether it's a saddle or whether it's being able to throw down $350 and go to a dentist or something like that. So I'm throwing this out there to you. I'm throwing this out here to the community, to the group that listens to my program on a regular basis. I would love your feedback on this. And if we agree or if we can figure something like this out, I'd be happy to start it. I'd be happy to start it if there's somebody else that feel more, wants to manage it as a third party. I don't care. It's not going to be my money. This is money that we would use in order to help people. Now, there'd have to be some kind of a vetting process in some way, shape, or form. Like, it couldn't just be, hey, I could really use $1,000. It wouldn't really be like that. It would have to be some kind of limitation, maybe, I don't know, $300, $400. So it wouldn't be like somebody could just take advantage of this, because people take advantage of your shit. Am I right? So I want to put it out there because let's try it. Here's where I'm coming from. I get on this program every single day, and a lot of times I'm ripping things apart. And I'm ripping things apart and I'm trying to put it back together again so that you understand kind of what's happening in terms of some level of reality. And there are layers and layers and layers way above what I'm ripping apart, right? But these are the layers that we can wrap our heads around. And the whole idea is to become as clear and informed and see the game evolve to the best way possible, in the best way possible. And again, it's going to be through my filter and my predisposition, and I'm not always right. And I'm doing my best to say as clear and corrected as possible, and I do a lot of internal checks along the way. Okay, so when I do this, I think it's a worthwhile process. But what would happen if we could use this medium and for at least 30 days up through the end of the year, change people's lives and say, okay, you know what? Here you go, coming at you. This is what you need. Just made it happen. So I'd like your feedback. I'd like you to send me, you can communicate with me on YouTube, although that's not the best place, but you can certainly comment on this idea. And you can send me an email, rpm1122@zoho.com, rpm1122@zoho.com. And you can connect with me on Facebook. And I'm going to make a Facebook post today, and I'm going to get some feedback. And, this is, we ask ourselves, what can we do? What can we do? How can we change the world? Well, I'm throwing something out there. And it's experimental. I know it's kind of off the cuff, but it just hit me last night between going to sleep and waking up. And this is a way to connect with our hearts. And it's not virtue signaling. It's not virtue signaling. A lot of times when people are down and out or they need something, they rarely ask for it. They rarely ask for it. So some people are often very uncomfortable when it comes to receiving something. So anyway, I'm throwing it out there, and if you would like to respond, you'd like to participate, you have some ideas around this, I'm all ears, because I think it's a time where we can be really concrete about the miracles that we create in our life. We're coming up on that Saturn-Sun conjunction in Capricorn on the night of the winter solstice. It's a big moment. It's a big, big moment. All right, why don't we leave it there and send you off on a positive note. And whether or not we can get this thing off the ground in time and get it to fly and figure out how we're going to do this and manage this. And I'd like to because I'm putting it out there, and I'm putting it out there as a community idea. Okay, whether or not it does happen or we can manage it, we can put it together. Look, you can do it in your life. You can just stay open. If there's somebody that needs something, really needs something, stay open to that. If you, and this is where I'm really trying to do my work, because I've got some challenges going on in my personal life, which I've not shared with the world at large, and I'm not going to share right now. But they're daunting in a lot of ways. And so during this period of trial, I'm making it my practice to do the opposite and not succumb to this process here in some ways. Now the process is okay because I've got to be clear and focused and all that other stuff. But our challenge is to not descend into anger and not descend into retribution, to not descend into seething resentment. And that's a challenge. And so what do we do to meet that challenge? We go to the other side and we use the opportunity to build bridges, perhaps with other people or situations that may have nothing to do with the thing that we're going through. But it's a way for us to indirectly influence situations and then make ourselves, to some degree, whole again. Right? I mean, theoretically, at a soul level, we're all whole. But through the process of time, through the process of experience, through the process of our own spiritual lessons that we go through, sometimes there's a remembering that needs to take place. A remembering. Feels good to just talk about that. Okay, so you know where to find me. I gave you my email address. And by the way, again, transparency. You want to send me an email, do it. If there's a cause or you have an idea or there's something that you need to talk to me, send me an email. I can't always pick up on the ciphers of YouTube messages. Okay? That's the best thing I can do right now. All right, why don't we get on out of here? You know the drill. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to step on what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to 15 Minutes of Flame. Get back to me. Let's see if we can put together a program where we can do some miracles and